All right, welcome back to the Pure Playbook. I'm Dr. Dustin Bosson here with Dr. Nate Merhaut and a special guest today. We've got Kody Welker in the building. We're going to go over exactly why he's here in just a second, but I'm super grateful to have another guest like yourself. I'll let you do the introducing here in just a second, but welcome back. Like I said, we're just trying to bring credibility and information and education to student athletes and their parents trying to keep up as we kind of forge our way through our healthcare facility here for student athletes and professionals at the Pure Athlete. So let's jump to it. Dr. Nate.
Yeah, so we brought Kody in because we have a mutual connection through one of our athletes that he also trains. And we had him come in the other day and just sat down and talked, and just so we're on the same page with this athlete. And it was almost like I was talking to you. And everything,
we looking in the mirror.
Everything we said was aligning, and it's like, okay, this is a good relationship, a good fit. And it's like, you want to be on the podcast so we can expose you to our people and talk about what you do and what your passion is. So let's get right into it. And first, just kind of say who you are and what you do as a living.
Yeah. So my name is Kody Welker. Pretty much whenever someone asks where you're from, I say I'm from St. Charles. Been a personal trainer and a coach for about 10 years, I guess. So I'm a husband, right? Going on 7 years. Crazy. Not sure how she's put up with me for that long. You have those conversations. You ever hear like every marriage is psychological. One of you is psycho and the other one's logical. Sometimes I'm more of a psycho. So God bless her. I have 3 kiddos, 3 boys, rambunctious boys. That just, as you guys know, keep you on your toes, keep you young again, and it keeps that fire, that drive, right? Yeah. I'm very thankful and grateful to have met you guys through our athlete. Know if we can say her name or anything like that, but for just keep it there. Yeah. Because what you guys do is so cool. It's everything. As a former student athlete myself, I wished I would have had. So to your point, Nate, like when we met last week, it was as if like, yes, that's what I would have wanted. That's what I would have wanted to have. Yeah. So, here we are. And I'm getting to my 10th year into the coaching and training realm, getting to kind of dive into what it was I really got into this for, is to have an impact like this.
Yeah. Well, this is on the docket, and why it lined up so well is because we're kind of going through our mental pillars. So when it comes to the Pure Athlete, as far as a practice and what we're doing, there's 3 pillars. There's physical, mental, and relationships is really how we break it down, right? And so when we met last week and talking about what you do, and we'll go in a little to a little more what you do, because I love what you're doing on the dad side of things. I have a huge heart for dads as student athletes, and we'll get there here in just a few. But we're going to talk a little bit on the mental side, and we talked last week on the last episode of it's not just drive and push through the pain, and you understood that right off the bat. So I'm excited to get your perspective a little bit too. But being a personal trainer and being somebody who is collaborative, like we had talked when you and I first met, just even over the phone, we didn't know each other from Adam and really still don't. But we're learning very quickly about each other and the things that line up with us and with what you do, training student athletes, and your methodology and really the goals of what you have and the quality you want to put out. And I think we all have something that is absolutely necessary, because it's coming from a perspective of what I like to call big mission, right reasons, but it's definitely not the cliche way of going throughout it. So this will be good.
Yeah. One thing I do want to point out is this is how we've talked about on many episodes before, is how we collaborate with like-minded individuals within different fields, and not necessarily what we're doing is trying to step on anybody's toes, because what other people do outside of this office is awesome.
Yeah.
And finding those people to collaborate with that. A perfect example is with this athlete. I had a conversation with her on teaching her a little bit of fundamentals of what we do in this office when we start with some athletes. And I didn't have to talk much on it because Kody already laid the foundation for me, and she was golden. And I had to spend maybe 30 seconds just reviewing it and talking it from how I approach it. And that alone is gold because one, it saves us time in the office. Two, there's other people that we're working with that are building that foundation for these athletes, and we can trust them and know that they're doing the right thing. And that's where this kind of relationships comes into play is that that value of having somebody else that's not necessarily under our roof that we can trust our athletes and send them to and know that the right thing is being done with that one-on-one time that you're spending a lot with these athletes. So I didn't want that to get shoved under the rug because it was something that I noticed right away without even knowing you.
And your guys' willingness to collaborate is, I mean, it's unheard of.
Yeah.
I guess I speak for my 10 years. It's unheard of because it's our industry, right, is very prideful and egotistical industry. So the fact that you guys literally have said, I don't want to do what you are doing. I want to provide you with these tools, this information so that you can go do what you do. That is, that's so I started out in the corporate realm, right? And that's, we get micromanaged all the time. And essentially what you guys are doing is what most of us who get out of the corporate realm want to do. It's like, okay, cool. Hey, here's what you want out of this person. Go do it. And especially that we align in, just our beliefs, but also how we look at the body, we tackle and all those things. It makes for a fun time. And it's like, you hear it all the time. Your passion was reignited for the field, the thing, the job, whatever.
Right.
And I feel like even just in this past handful of weeks, being able to work with our athlete and getting to meet you guys in person, and like, I say this with love, the nerdiness from this man is who I wanted to, like, I look back at like who I was as a younger kid, and it's like, that's who I was too insecure to be.
Yeah.
And like, this man over here is this, like, the guy I feel like my wife tries to calm down sometimes. It was like, hey, whoa, but like, you guys together, your chemistry together is awesome as doctors, but as individuals, it's really cool to see. So, I mean, I feel blessed and fortunate just to be here with you guys.
Yeah.
Well, then let's, we're going to do all kinds of episodes together. Let's see if we can't maybe stay a little bit on track.
Ooh.
I know.
We'll try
because
this.
I want to go in what you do, why you do it, your philosophy of it. But let's see if we can't stay into the mental side of what we're doing this month. And then we're just going to have you as a regular. I have a feeling as we go throughout.
Do we have like a safe word or whatever that's called?
Sam usually waves her arms if she needs to.
Hallelujah.
if she needs to reel us in.
All right.
Yeah. But in general, this episode, and we gave Kody some options to pick from on what episodes he jumped on, and this one just happened to be, we met with him last week and we're like, oh well, this is the next episode and you're a perfect fit for this. And it's confidence in sport and building it, silencing doubt and owning your game. And we also want to tie in one of Kody's passions and just how faith and fitness work together, and we'll let him speak on that itself. But confidence is kind of where we're going with this one from the mental side of the game, and how what you do with your athletes and how you instill confidence, as well as what we do in our office and how we instill confidence, because confidence is something that is built and you're not necessarily born with it. And that's something that I believe, and we can talk on that too. But I'll throw it over to you, Kody, and how faith and fitness is your passion, and how do you tie that into building confidence with your athletes?
All right. Well, I guess first off, my job is not to push my faith on anybody. Right. So there's that. There has to be the willingness to even hear and listen. Most of the time, they're receptive, right? But then. And again, I'm not a preacher. It's not what I was called to do, right? And so preaching to athletes is not what I do. Teaching them how you can incorporate, hey, you know how it was kind of scary to go to that church camp when you were younger and you did it, and even though you probably didn't want to do it, but your parents made you do it because they didn't want you at home all day, you had a lot of fun. You built relationships. You experienced things you maybe didn't think you were going to experience. Right. And you go back now willingly every year. Like similarly, how you subject yourself to that temporary discomfort. That's what we're going to do in here, right? So we might have some exercises that you've heard of before. I'm hopefully going to be able to challenge you in such a way that you haven't been challenged, but I can guarantee you're going to be exposed to some exercises and some drills that you haven't heard of. And some of them, like our breath work, you're not even going to be moving, but I promise you're going to be working.
Yeah.
So as long as you guys are okay with being challenged in here, like you are outside of here in your everyday life, like you were at that church camp or whatever, then let's party. Right. And so you really get that like buy-in, like, oh, okay, cool. Let's see what this random old dude has to offer. Right? Yeah. Let's see here.
Random old dude. Get out of here.
Me being the old
one thing I remember you saying when we met last time was how you talk to certain athletes differently to instill the confidence, and sometimes even just saying, do it this way or do it again. And then once they actually get that, to instill the confidence and see that they can actually do it and didn't realize they could do it. I kind of butchered the way that you said it. So, but along those same lines of talking to an athlete a certain way, showing them that they can do certain things that they might not have the confidence in what they're doing. And then once they actually do it, pointing out the good in what they did. And because oftentimes, and we've talked about this on the podcast, they get so much negative thrown towards them and what they've done wrong and what they can't do right, but then pointing out what's good and what they did do right and how that starts to build confidence. I want you to talk a little bit about that, because you had a really good point with the athlete that we were working with and how you approached it.
So I go back to Bible a lot about these things. And by no means I'm a Bible scholar. So when I reference a scripture, please check me on it. But in 2 Timothy, it tells us that the Bible is designed to teach, correct, and convict, right? And so, and it may not necessarily be in that order, but I think a lot of us are so used to, especially athletes, right? Only getting heard, hey, get your bat up. Right. Hey, get your butt down. Right. I'm speaking from baseball. And that's right. Get your elbow up. Right. Hey, your release point was off.
Get your skirt down, Alice.
Right.
All right, you're done.
ground ball between the legs.
Yes. And as an athlete, you obviously look for that criticism to be able to get better. But I think you get so used to the negativity, and like the praise is almost foreign to a point where it shouldn't be. In my opinion, it shouldn't be so foreign. And to your point specifically, there was a book I read years ago when I got into personal training by a guy named Brett Bartholomew. If you haven't heard of the book, it's called Conscious Coaching. And he was a strength coach out of SIU Carbondale. And now he's more in like the motivational side of speaking to leaderships, how to be better leaders. Right. And so he talks about in his book how each of us have this different, he calls it archetype personalities, right? And so how to acknowledge, to kind of discover someone's personality to then best learn how to talk to that person. Now, there's a lot of us who are type A, especially in our industry, high level athletes are that person, like that personality. And so if I just simply say like, do this, do that, do this, like it's taking orders rather than it being your choice. Like, hey, today what I've got planned for today, it's kind of how I talk to our athlete. Hey, what I have planned for us today is to do this, a little bit of this, and we're going to lead into this, finishing this. Does that sound cool to you? Yeah, let's party. So now it's been your choice to now dive into this, and now you're doing everything by choice rather than like me telling you what we're doing.
Yeah.
And so now I'm giving you suggestions. It's like, I always make the joke, it's like the speed limit. I'm giving you suggestions and whether or not you abide by it. Like, hey, because of who is in your corner between you doctors, myself, your coaches outside of here, your trust is in us to help. Like the things that we give you are going to help you get to your goal. So I'm not just throwing things out there to waste your time, get your heart rate up, get you sweating. Like that's a byproduct, but the things I have you do. So with some athletes, I get their permission to do things. Other people are like, no, this is what we're going to do. This is what I have planned for you, because they take direction much better. A great example on some of them is like, instead of saying, hey, when you squat, hey, knees out, right? Knees over toes. I will praise when they do it, even if they're not doing it out of like, say 10 reps, like half of them are their valgus, right? Their knees are caving in.
Right.
I'll catch that one. Hey, great job on not letting those knees fall in, right? And then they hear, "Ooh, don't let your knees fall in," right? Keep your knees out. So it's a different way to say the same thing that isn't discouraging. It's using praise over negativity. And I found with a lot of people, it builds trust, builds buy-in, all the things that we want. Right?
Yeah, I mean, that's the biggest thing is you're dealing with people, and not everybody has stellar confidence. I would say most people probably don't. And so talking to them as a person and not an object en route to a goal, it's literally like you talk about wives. We're right there with you. I think it'll be 2000, so 9 years this year. And it's like, you want to train a husband or a dog correctly, praise them. Tell them what they're doing good. Like,
I'm not laughing.
Honey, I love when you make dinner. Like, that's just awesome. Like, praise them, right? And it's like, man, I love when you put your laundry in the hamper. Like, it's such a huge help. It's
humility,
like,
it's humbling just hearing that, because you're right.
But it's like, it's the same with athletes, and being able to instill that confidence of, you are doing things right in a world where 33%, like 66% failure is Hall of Fame. So it's big.
Yeah. When we talk about failure, I've talked about this many times, is that, and I literally think I mentioned it the other day to this athlete we've been talking about, is taking failure and using it as data. And the nerdy side of me is coming out and saying, use it as data, because that data is going to give you something to improve upon. And if you look at it as something to improve upon, as opposed to something I did bad or something I failed on, then it's just whatever mindset you take and approach you take, you can either excel and exceed and move on to the next level, or you can stay where you are and even sometimes regress with just how you're looking at those failures. And that's a big thing that I like to instill in the athletes, is how you look at some of those failures. And just like you said, the way that you even approach it in saying, pointing out the good, and there's ways to even point out the bad. And if you're pointing out the bad, tell them in the mindset of, use this data as, this was bad, but let's use it to make you better. And that's one thing that I like to really point out and stress to a lot of our athletes, because so many of them get down on themselves when they don't do it right. And you literally said with this athlete is that she gets so irritated and frustrated when she doesn't do something right the first time. And that's where a lot of those type A and those athletes that have that mindset can really, really go downhill with the mental component of the game. And then it affects their physical performance. So
I also like to, a couple of things with this individual, but with everybody, I think it's during Michael Jordan's, one of his quotes I love, he said, "I've never lost a game in my life." I'm like, no, I've watched you lose. What are you talking about? He goes, "I've either won or I've learned." And like, just that. And I think a lot of these sayings, I think get undervalued. It's cheesy, sure, but there's so much truth to it that, similar to how I talk to my dads, it's, failure, was it Denzel? Failure only happens when you stop trying. Chase the failure, right? If you fail, cool. Like, if you didn't achieve the goal that one time you did it, how many times have you done this, right? And with this individual we talk about, I have to relate it to other things in her life to get the principle. It was like, you remember that time you gave that speech? How many speeches did you give prior to that? Well, not very many. Were you good at it? You shouldn't expect to be good at the thing the first time you do it, or maybe the first couple times you do it. Now, we get into like 50 to 100 time repetitions and you're still not good. Right. I'm looking within as to like, how am I not teaching this properly? But at that point, then we can start thinking like, wow, okay, what message isn't being delivered, and why is she not, or they not receiving it? Right.
Right. One thing along this same topic is some people talk about the inner critic, and that inner critic comes from oftentimes how you're talking to yourself, so just in your mind, and even that comes from the people that surround you and how they talk to you. And if there's derogatory comments, whether it's from coaches, parents, other teammates, role models that are around you, doctors that are working with you, if there's stuff coming in from the outside that turns into what you're telling yourself on the inside, and knowing where that stuff's coming from is kind of step one. Is if there is that negative inner critic within you that is putting you down a path that you shouldn't be going down, where is that coming from? Is it something that you actually came up with yourself, or is it something that someone else put onto you or is constantly instilling in you? And if that's the case, either removing yourself from that situation, or finding other people like yourself that can instill the positive in that positive talk to the athlete, so it turns into positive self-talk themselves, and that inner critic isn't really destroying them, it's building them up.
So let me ask you this. Maybe we can go around the table and do it this way. Let's try to see if we can't highlight some bullet points and give some tangible points of at least what we think. So again, take this with a grain of salt. Let this kind of sink in and see our hearts through this. But what would you say are maybe like the top three things that you see, whether it's a pitfall or a hole in the bucket, when it comes to confidence, instilling confidence, having confidence, losing confidence in student athletes? because that's a big thing. It's like,
let's not get deep here at all.
Yeah, I know. And at the same time, but also make it easy.
Yeah.
It's like for, maybe for some of our listeners, for those that end up hearing this, and for those of you literally listening, is it's like, okay, if we could summarize this, I think we all could probably come up with a few bullet points of like, okay, here's, at least in my experience and in my humble experience, here's probably the top 3 things that I might see or that I deal with most or that I recognize in student athletes that either immediately helps or is a trigger, like you were saying, that, what are some of those things?
So initially, and maybe this is the parent in me coming out, or the husband in me trying to take responsibility when things don't go our way. I say an athlete staying, given they have the ability, staying with a coach or a trainer who doesn't already do that for them. So being able to acknowledge when your coach or trainer is only being negative. I don't think there's anything wrong with maybe having a discussion with that coach, or in a way that's obviously professional and respectful, to say like, hey, this is what I need, right? And teaching kids to communicate at a young age, I think helps dads and husbands be better at it. But also like, hey, what do you need? Like, do you know what kind of learner you are? Right? Do you know I need that positive reinforcement? I'm not asking you to affirm everything I do, but I'm talking like, hey, did I get any of those reps right? Like, let me know. So maybe the first thing is an athlete just thinking like the coach that they're with is an end all be all, going to get them to their end position, whether they have a name, a reputation, or whatever the case might be. If that coach isn't a fit for you, you have to have the confidence, right? In addressing that. And that can be hard. So I hope that was a way to answer your question.
Sure.
Let me hear some of your
I got one.
Yeah,
sometimes it's what the focus is on. And this is something that Dustin oftentimes talks a lot about is the focus on winning or losing, or is the focus on, how did you perform? How did so-and-so do? What could you do better? And I want Dr. Dustin to talk a little bit about because he's mentioned this before, but I think it'll spark some thoughts in you is, what do you usually say to your kids after the game? There's like a couple things, I think it's 3 that you bring up and ask, but it's not about, oh yeah, we won, blah, 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 or, oh, we lost and, that sucks kind of thing.
Yeah. It's so
what the focus is on.
What did you do good? Is usually the first thing I'll ask my kids off the ice. And Cammie's getting old enough now where in a year or so she'll get asked these questions too. But what did you do great out there? What did you do good? What would you like to do better based on the day's games? What do you think you could have done better? And then what did you do best? Okay. And then the 4th one I added too is, who is MVP today? And really my goal in a lot of that from a humble perspective is I'm going to love seeing, whether it's my kids or kids that maybe I end up coaching one day, I'm going to love when they say, you know what? Me. And because the one thing that I want every student and every kid to do, and something that I do as a dad, is you don't need me to be proud of you. You need to be proud of you. But saying I am proud of you, I always lead with, that's awesome, buddy. Are you proud of yourself?
Right. How does that make you feel?
And he's like, yeah. And I said, good, because I'm proud of you too. You don't need to hear that, but I'm proud of you. But and so it's those things right off the bat. But I think one of the things, like one of my bullet points would be, where is kind of this pitfall or this hole in the bucket with confidence with student athletes, is there's always there. You always want to be there. I want to go to the Blues game. I want to go to this college. I want to bat cleanup. I want to be the leading scorer. I want to have his legs. I want to, have her hair. I want to score those points. I want to, there's always there. Be here. And I think that's one of the immediate, and that's something that I'm learning even currently and trying to sit with is the presence of, and to your point too, is it's, whether it's people or situations, it's like what got you here may not get you there, but right now you're here. Have the goal to go there, but just know that you are here, and this is not out of reach. But if you're too busy trying to be there when you are here, it will get overwhelming, and it can. Good. And it can really shut you down. And I think that's one of the big things. And that's just speaking from my experience too. And so I think there's a way to look at that. I don't care how hard-nosed you are, how confident you are, but I think that's one of the things is be here.
No, I love that. I think so Romans 12:2, right? It makes me think of that where it's
he's not a scholar of the Bible.
I'm not. I know these because they've meant something to me, right? And so do not conform to the ways of the world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind, right? And so the way of the world would say, hey, what's your goal? I want to be a professional athlete. Cool. Go do all the things that takes you to be a professional athlete. But the way of the world doesn't necessarily teach you to acknowledge the progress in that practice from Wednesday's practice to Monday's practice. Like to your point about with your kids, that I have a 6-year-old who he's the oldest and he's in sports now. And so basketball, Saturdays, he got really good at finally it shifted to like, oh, I get this on defense to side shuffle. And we work on all the movements, right? And I say side shuffle, but his coaches weren't saying those words. So he didn't get it.
Right.
And I said, hey, now when you're on defense, like side shuffle, like move with them. And I saw it and I was like, holy cow, that kid, awesome. And so I asked him when he got done, kind of to your point, say, hey, what'd you like about that game? Do you have fun? First off, did you like it? Yeah, Dad, did you see me on defense? I did. I side shuffled. And so I was like, yes, you get it now, right? You got so much better from this time than last time. And I think a lot of athletes get so stuck, to your point, on that end result. Like, don't get me wrong, the things we do get us there, but also be proud of what you did that got you from where you were 2 days ago to where you are now. Like, you got 0.4 seconds faster on that shuttle, dude. Yeah. That means that you're doing the things in the gym that you need to be doing to get faster. And your ultimate goal is to what? Get faster, jump higher, all those things. You're getting there. So that's a great point.
Right. I think this is a good segue into something we wanted to talk about, which is a little bit off topic, but it's a pocket of stuff that we want to highlight with what you do. And because you both talked about your experience as dads, and something that you're passionate about is working with dads from a fitness and faith standpoint. Tell us a little bit about that, because it does tie into how you can instill and build confidence within your student athletes as your own kids. And you've all both just touched on how you guys already do that, but I want you to touch on kind of that business aspect of what your passion is and why you want to work with dads and tie it into the confidence.
So my main passion is to provide what I didn't have as a father growing up, father figure, right? And I wanted my dad to be more present around. And he worked nonstop. Don't hear me wrong. My dad was a worker, right? And in his mind, that was providing love, right? And so power too. I want to show my kids that I can do both. And I want to be present in all of their lives as much as possible while still creating an impact in other people's lives, having that servant mentality. So how do you do that? Well, I was like, okay, I need to use what I'm good at, what I know, and the things that I've learned to help other people. Well, then you get into business and you start to realize, oh, crap, who am I talking to? Like, who can I help? And that's who I was and who I'm becoming and who I want to be. And so dads, I mean, if there's anything that dads can do, it's help mold their kids' mindset and look at who they were, who they want to be, and be who they want their kids to be. And that's like, it's very humbling when you say these things, because then you're instantly like convicted with buts of that inner voice, right? Of who you're not being. But the reason why I love working with dads is because we have an opportunity to create the next student athlete and instill that confidence in our kids to focus on the progress, not perfection, as some of us might have been encouraged to think about being perfect. So teaching adult men how to be humble, how to embody biblical masculinity, be softer around your kids, right? What's the saying? Be a warrior in the garden, not a gardener in the war, right? And so teaching men how to become more biblically masculine has been a passion of mine, because then you teach kids how to be confident, do new things. Like, I get to teach dads who have maybe never really worked out. Like, they know the idea of it, but teaching them how to do hard things like working out, be consistent, which is another hard thing to do, and acknowledge their progress along the way. They build that confidence to then speak life into their kids, to do the things like you're doing after a game, right? Without this hesitancy to be that person, because maybe they didn't either have it or they don't believe in themselves enough to say those things. And so it's really cool to have an impact like that. God's just using me to do that.
Yeah, that's along one of my other bullet points too, and this was something I recently listened to, and I told you I was listening to him earlier. But Pastor Joby Martin, he's out of Jacksonville, and I was listening to one of his things at the gym, and this is going to wrap into your point. And one of the pitfalls too, if we can teach not only just these kids and student athletes, and not only just dads, I would say society in general right now, but especially in the athlete world. Pastor Joby was talking about in basically in growth, in the rise, in the celebrations of things. It's always, the foundation is always humility and humbleness, like every time. And so as that's always involved with the rise, the fall has everything to do with pride. And so the foundation of falling and getting to the bottom, or, some of the unfortunate things is, has everything to do with pride. And if we can teach these kids, like you were saying earlier, to speak up and be vulnerable, like, hey, I don't know if he's going to like hearing this, but it's also what you say, not how you say it, or it's how you say it, not necessarily what you say. So if you deliver it the right way, but having the confidence and also the vulnerability at the same time to be like, here's what I need from you, or here's what I don't feel like I'm doing well, or here's my desires. I just don't think I'm cut out for that right now. What can I do better? And to the same regard of what you're dealing with, what your passion is with the dads and instilling that is, it's like how much pride from, men who have stories where we wish, everybody's got the daddy issues, right? No, daddy, mommy issues. It always happens. It's never good enough, but being able to sit with that and being like, okay, what I did have, what was good about my childhood, but also, okay, what did I learn? How could I be different? And how can I ask for help if I don't know how to do that? I asked a friend one time, I'm like, how do you be more humble? Like, I literally had to ask that question because my heart is like, I want to help, and growing up and literally, I remember sitting in his truck when we were going across town, we were talking about our baseball careers and stuff like that. And I'm like, he asked me a question and I had a pretty cool accolade growing up and I don't even talk about it anymore. I don't need to, but he's asking, and I was just like, how do I answer this humbly? And so that was a big thing too. But when you're talking about dads and things like that, that vulnerability and humbleness, it's like sit in that, like use that, be the lead apologizer and be the most humble person around.
And I think, the society would tell you that acknowledging that you were wrong, right? Being the first to apologize, those types of things are weak, right? And so then, no one wants to be that. Everyone wants to be the alpha and they want to act like it, right? Instead of be it. And sometimes that looks like saying, I don't know.
Right.
Like, ooh, hey, why don't you go ahead and go first? Because I know you know what you're doing. I'll learn from you, right? On this drill, I know I might be the captain of the team. I know I might do this, but Johnny over here, he does this drill way better. I want you guys to see him do this drill and do it like he does it, right? And so as an athlete, what that can, in my opinion, what that might look like is, again, doing everything Bible, right? Doing everything that you do unto the Lord, right? Do for him, right? And so, hey, being the kid on your team that's not afraid to pray. If that's your faith and that's what you practice at home, share it, right? There's a way to share that without pushing it, right? So, hey, I've had a couple guys say, before a game, hey guys, we're going to get together and pray real quick. If you want to join, awesome. If not, we'll be out there in a second. And so you just take a second, pray, God, give me the strength, the attention, all these things. And that right there sets the tone already that you're a leader. If you're willing to do uncomfortable things and society makes praying like that very uncomfortable, you're already, that's humility in itself.
Yeah.
Right.
Honoring yourself, being true to who you are, kind of like our number one core value, or mine anyways, genuine. And I think, I stray from that from time to time, but that keeps me kind of centered, is like, having
human.
Exactly. Oh. Right. And having that confidence to absolutely do that. So those things you mentioned, it's like, for you student athletes out there, you parents, you can put that on either side of the fence, whether you're a parent or a coach or a student athlete, like all of those are applicable. Like, you don't always have to take the lead. To be the alpha doesn't always mean be first, score the most, lift the most, do it right every time. It's just not the case.
I'm going to tie kind of all of what you guys just said together and kind of bullet point some things to tie it into the confidence point again. But similar to what you're doing with dads and what we're doing with student athletes as from a coaching aspect with the mindset, but surrounding yourself with the right people, which we talked about, whether that's coaches, whether that's personal trainers, whether it's other doctors, your parents, friends, having that support around you can help instill that confidence from how they're talking to you and that inner critic that we just talked about. Being okay with failure, leaning into the tough stuff, because by challenging yourself and being uncomfortable in certain situations is how you're going to grow and how you're going to build that confidence over time. Even just challenging yourself from a training aspect, which I know that's part of what your job is and what you do, is making things tough so that you can grow physically, as well as the mental toughness side of it, of doing something hard physically to build that mental toughness. And then the focus on the small wins, like you've said before, showing that, that rep was great. You had your knees in the right place, and those small wins over time is going to build that confidence too, as opposed to just keep breaking it down, the bad thing, why'd you do this? You did this wrong again. And so those small wins over time, and you yourself paying attention to those small wins, because every small win adds up to how you move forward and how you grow as an athlete as well as a person. And then along those small wins, it crosses over into the repetition, and the repetition of constantly instilling the confidence in yourself and training the skills so that they are second nature. So you don't have to necessarily think, and it's something that is subconscious in a sense. And to one of your points that you made, where it's like, if you're doing it 50 times and then you're doing it 50 times wrong, then that's when we need to correct you. But if we do it and we start to show those small wins and you realize where those small wins are and the right things you're doing, eventually it will become second nature, and you'll have that confidence because you won't have to think about what you're doing at that point. So to summarize a lot of those points that we kind of talked about, that's kind of what I see to help build that unshakable confidence in yourself is how to do it. And we each touched on kind of all those points as a whole. So
I think just to piggyback off that, one of the big, we're going to call this selling point, right, of the program that I have is the accountability and support aspect, right? You could YouTube, you could Google how to lose weight, you could do all these things, right? How to get strong, sure, you'll get some results, but at the end of the day, right? Do you have a group of people around you, a community, right, of like-minded individuals striving for the same thing that will not only give you the support you need, cheer for you, but also hold you accountable to putting in the reps, right? Say, hey, you've only worked out once this week, or twice this month. You can't really expect to have the results you want if you're supposed to be doing X, Y, Z. And, with the student athletes, it's, just like we want it to become second nature to do the thing physically because we've done a right amount of reps the right way. When it comes to building that confidence, right, surrounding yourself with the right people, community of people who are going to give you the support and the accountability, that will become second nature to get out of that self-talk, to stop listening to that self-talk, right? And start maybe, again, take captive your thoughts, something the Bible teaches, right? So I like to say, like, acknowledge what you just thought, but then logically navigate through that feeling, that emotion, that thought. Does this make sense for me to think that I'm the worst one on the team because I went 0 for 4 today? No, not at all. This is not, I'm not going to get in a pity party and then take that into the rest of the season because of one game. Yeah. Right. Because to your point, right, that's what I love about honestly, what I loved about baseball. You could be successful 1 out of 3 times and still get that's good.
Yeah. That's incredible.
All right. So, yes.
All right. Now we're going to throw it over to Sam, which is a fun segment we usually do. So, Sam, what do you got for us today? Nothing? Oh, she doesn't have a mic.
She didn't mic up?
What is this?
Oh,
did I steal your mic?
No, there's 4 of them. One. I think she wanted the day off today. She's a listener. She does enjoy the listen.
Those are the dangerous ones.
All right, I'll come up with something fun then.
What you got?
All right, Kody. You're from this area, right?
Sure. Yeah. Most of my life has been here. Yeah.
Okay. I'm not from this area, and Dr. Dustin originally is not necessarily
an hour and a half
from
away.
This area. I mean, you even lived in California too, so grew up somewhere there.
Yeah, we don't claim that.
We won't judge you for that reason.
I'll pray for them over there.
What are your top 3 spots in, let's just say, St. Louis area, Missouri, this kind of area in general? It doesn't have to be, it could be food, it could be fitness, it could be entertainment, it could be, church.
Yeah.
Now I threw church in there. It better be number 1, right?
Well, no. Oh man, call me what you will, but Sugar Fire Barbecue.
Okay.
Yeah.
Dude.
We can be friends.
Dude, it's funny because my kids, anytime we're like, hey, what sounds good? Right? Because every now and then we'll give our kids, like, you know, the you can choose. My oldest, Sugar Fire. I want a cheeseburger. I'm like, babe, he spoke. Let's go.
Yeah. And their cheeseburgers are good.
They're so good.
Yeah.
Number 2, man, I anywhere outside, honestly. And I know that sounds bad. I live in St. Charles, next to a place called JC Park.
Yeah.
And it's one of the parks in the areas that has something for every age. So that's a reason why I like it, but also because it's like right up the street from my house. But it's so big and it's got something for every age, and I can be a kid on it also and like chase my kids around and do all the things where like sometimes I'll stop and like, should I be the only grown up here? Like, I'm gonna do it.
My sister sent me a Snapchat the other day of her husband on the playground, and their son is just about 1. So he's like, "Did we go to the playground for Steve or for Cooper?"
The dad, totally. Dad.
Yeah,
definitely
real.
Dad.
Yeah.
Number 3, I mean, I would say definitely church, because it is a place where I can be humbled, feel the conviction I know I need going into the rest of my week. And, just like a very solid practice will build someone up and going into the rest of the games or the week or whatever it is, let's just like that reset, that spiritual and that mental reset. You're like, okay, maybe the thing I stressed about all week wasn't so important. And then you get I need to apologize to my wife type conviction. And it really does just kind of reset your mind for the rest of the week. So I can't not say church.
Yeah, definitely.
How about you guys?
Yeah, I literally just came from the Crossing.
Okay.
So I shout out to the Crossing because there's times I'll just go there and I will just sit and do work there. Or there's times like there's times I'll wake up in the morning and being the more vulnerable version of myself, I'll look at my wife Erica and I'll be like, I just need my Jesus today. And so, but earlier, so I'll just go to the Crossing and sit and do work.
That's cool that they
I literally just came here
to do that. Yeah.
That's awesome. I would say another one would be Lindenwood. A lot of good times at Lindenwood, a big staple in my life, a big turning point in my life. I loved Lindenwood. I ended up going to college when I was a little older. I was 23, I think, when I started Lindenwood. Okay. Met my wife there at the end of Lindenwood, last 6 weeks there. So that was kind of cool too. But I'll go to their library. What was the old library? Now they got a new beautiful library. But I'll just either go onto campus and I'll just drive through the campus and just kind of reminisce a bit, or I'll just go sit in the library and do so. That's kind of one of my go-to spots. And if I had to throw a foodie place in there, if I'm going to I'm just going to go to Twisted Tree and have a steak and relax and wine and dine myself and, have a bourbon and good steak.
Hopefully these places hear us and they're like, hey, you know what? Come on in for the rest of the year and on us.
Yeah.
Scott Trade Center. Really good for
there you go. Season tickets, where'd they come from? That's weird.
Sponsor, right? Mine are, I'll start with the food one, probably Salt and Smoke. My wife and I had our rehearsal dinner at Salt and Smoke, and love barbecue. So barbecue's up in there if we're talking about a foodie place. In nature is, if I were to say where I'm connected and where I feel the most connected to God, it's in nature. So that's kind of in a sense where I feel like my church is, even though I do go to church physically at a location, but in nature is where I do feel the most connected and most at peace, and where I can put my mind and my thoughts where they need to be and stay on the right track. And then the third one would be my backyard. I love sitting on the patio, sitting on the deck, grilling, having people over, having a fire. Those kind of things is where it's at. That brings me back also to just childhood, because I had a great backyard growing up and played tons of sports in the backyard, had great bonfires and tons of great memories. So it brings me back to that too. And I think that's just a great place for community. So
I like that, because then you're also, because it's something you held valuable, and now you're providing that for your kids. And I mean, now hopefully, right, the goal is my wife and I sat down years ago and we're like, all right, what do we want out of our house, right? We want to create this environment where our kids don't want to go to their friends, right? They want to invite their friends over. And so, I mean, that's the backyard, right? Come play, be a kid.
Yep.
Eat.
Oh yeah. All the above.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Cool. All right, Sam.
What we got? Good? Man. This is we're going to do this again because there's plenty of topics that we need to go. I'm just kind of feeling led that we're going to put together a curriculum where we're going to have Kody here on for a few things. I think there's some things that we can really go through and hammer through. So pretty good overview a little bit, touched on some confidence things, touched on a little bit more about us, a little bit more about how we can collaborate together, a little bit about what we do. But at the end of the day, guys, it's nice to have people, again, putting people around you that get the mission, get the vision, and it really is big mission, right reasons. And to be able to serve and, build and protect student athletes better is really, I think, at the heart of what we do. And doing it differently, and I wouldn't even call it differently. It's just intention and specificity with understanding on what they need, what we always wanted, and what parents are listening to. And it's where do we go, or what they're desiring, where do we go, who do we trust, how do we prevent, and solving for that, and being very intentional doing so with great people in your corner. So stay tuned. Make sure you like, subscribe, hit up Kody Welker. How do we get a hold of you? Why don't you let the people know how to get a hold of you?
I made it super easy because I actually became what's a paralysis by analysis when it came what do I want my name to be on Instagram? So check it out. It's my first and last name
with a K.
Kody Welker. You can check that out. A lot of my content's directed towards dads. So check that out. If there's anything not on there, and again, everything's applicable to everyone. So if there's anything not on there that you guys see and you want on there, just hit me up. I love to make content. The thing I like to say is that your situation, your question, your thing is not so special. You're the only one going through it. And so ask it. And then that way we can talk about it and help more people.
Bingo. Feel the same way. Awesome. Cool. Join us next time on the Pure Playbook. See ya.